Are we going to see something like what happened in the Great Recession? So why do I bring this up now? So I bring this up now because I've just been reading and hearing a lot of stuff in the real estate industry today that gets me worried for people that are entering the market right now. You guys have all seen the housing market is on fire. Single family home prices seemingly just continue to go up and up and up. I recently attended a webinar from one of my real estate investments that had an interesting take on this issue. This is their theory. The demand right now is being driven primarily by two main factors. So on the demand side, right, we're not going to talk about supply. We'll talk about supply afterwards. But on the demand side, typically in the current generation, so this is different from, I guess, how it was back in the 60s or 70s, people don't really save that much. The savings rate here in the US is not very high. And it's not that they can't save, it's just the prioritization of what you're spending your money on. So if you prioritize saving your money, you'll save money. If you don't, then you won't, right? So what do people prioritize their money on typically here in the US? Mostly eating out, taking vacations. Well, if you took a vacation to Europe and that costs $10,000, that's $10,000 you have less saved, right? If you eat out and eating out costs, I don't know, another $5,000, $10,000 a year, well, that's another $5,000, $10,000. You could have saved $20,000 in that first year, right? So people aren't saving that much money typically. Well, what happened last year? Well, everything was locked down. You couldn't go anywhere on vacation and you couldn't eat out because everything was closed. So people were forced to save money. So what ended up happening was people realized they were sitting on fat stacks of cash at the end of the year. And they were like, well, we can afford that house now. Well, so on top of that, so that's one factor. On top of that, unfortunately, we had a lot of untimely deaths, right? Primarily due to COVID. And so when those people passed away, mostly in the older population, because that's where COVID really did hit the worst, they left inheritances. So what that meant is now you have a lot of people with a ton of money that's coming in. What are they going to do? Well, if they were thinking about buying a house, they're going to be buying a house. So you've got a lot of demand that just suddenly came from nowhere. Well, the savings rate is kind of going back down. The inheritances are really just a one-time thing. So all of that demand should normalize. Now, on top of this, let's look at the supply side. Well, again, COVID hit, everything was shut down. Didn't matter what you were doing. We were refining lumber, we were making concrete, all of this stuff was shut down. And so because of that, there's a massive supply shortage across a lot of industry sectors. You've seen it, car prices are crazy. People aren't building houses because it doesn't make sense. So there's just not that much supply to go around. But this is not a permanent problem. The supply will eventually normalize. I'm not sure how long it will take, maybe a year, maybe two, but supply will eventually normalize because that's just how supply and demand works. Now, once these factors normalize, I think we're going to start seeing a cool off in the real estate market. I'm not sure when that's going to be, but I think eventually we will see a cool off. Are we going to see something like what happened in the Great Recession? Definitely not. I think that was unprecedented. So yeah, I think things will normalize at some point. Prices will cool down a little bit. So the question really you need to ask yourself is it worth getting into something now that may soften a little bit? So check out this next video I put just down below. I think you're really going to like it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.